give a kind of generalized presentation of this subject matter, or if I should get into the scientific detail. He suggested he wanted to hear the scientific detail, which means that we're going to have to bear with some heavy material for the first several minutes, because that's where it's at. We're going to hear, I think, a pretty good scientific explanation of Prabhupada's statements regarding nourishing the finer tissues of the brain by taking milk products. I think at some point all of us have been wondering exactly what did Prabhupada mean by this? How is this happening exactly? So maybe we can learn something here. Kalakanta mentioned that I've been researching this for a while. It's true. I accidentally came across an article that sparked my curiosity. It sounded something like what Prabhupada has been saying about this subject. And I happened to have the opportunity, by the grace of my employer, to get paid for about 6,000 hours worth of research on this subject. I've gone very deeply into it. I have collected at this point about 13,000 different documents that are related to the subject matter somehow or other. So that we're just going to graze the surface. There's so much more that I could talk about, but there's not very much time. So let's get into it. The first thing is, let's talk a little bit about the words that are going to be used that are probably a little unfamiliar. I'll talk a lot about DHA, which is short for Docosahexaenoic acid. It's a type of fat. And it's one, we've all probably heard of omega-3 products. It's pretty common. It's an omega-3 polyunsaturated fat, and it's sometimes, scientists particularly refer to it as N3 polyunsaturated fats, PUFAs. And in fact, Docosahexaenoic acid is an omega-3. However, it's a specific omega-3. Oftentimes the advertisements will say, oh, rich in omega-3 products, okay, great. But that doesn't necessarily mean too much. You're kind of getting ripped off if they're not actually selling you DHA. So where is the seat of material intelligence? Here's a clue. What is the unique quality found in the milk of properly cared for cows that is essential for developing the finer tissues of the human brain, yet is practically not found elsewhere in a civilized human diet? So anywhere you see these kind of reddish print, that's direct quotes. Everything else is my words, and then you'll see references down at the bottom of the page. So you can actually go and read the original material if you want. So there's the cerebral cortex. We're located here in the front portion of your brain. The cerebral cortex, working in concert with multiple other regions of the brain, is considered the seat of higher level cognitive activity. This is where we think about stuff. This is where we make connections. This is the thing that kind of sets human thinking apart from other animals to some degree. It's the fact that we're able to make these connections between various ideas and concepts and behaviors and so on. So there's all these things going on in the cerebral cortex of the brain. So here we have a quote from a fellow named Tanaka in 2012. He said, DHA is a crucial component of neural membranes and is present in 30 to 40% of the gray matter of the cerebral cortex. Within that context of specific experimental designs, changes in brain concentrations of DHA are positively associated with changes in cognitive or behavioral performance. Okay, pretty straightforward. DHA can affect neurological function by, and then it goes on to say a whole bunch of different things that DHA in the brain does. Modulating signal transduction pathways, neurotransmission, neurogenesis, myelination, membrane receptor function, synaptic plasticity, neuroinflammation, membrane integrity, and membrane organization. So we don't need to get into the details of what all these things are. Some of them are self-evident. Probably recognize some of these terms. The point is, DHA does a whole lot of stuff in your brain. And in fact, in every cell in your body, but it's most important, most specific to our subject here, in the brain. This is the study that sparked my interest by Grayson, published in 2014. We have shown that dietary DHA is crucial for large-scale brain organization. So there's the European Food Safety Authority, which is kind of equivalent to our FDA. They made the following statement. The panel considers that the role of DHA in normal brain function applies to all ages, including brain development in infants and children. The panel also notes that the developing brain accumulates large amounts of DHA, particularly during the first 2 years of life, but also later and throughout childhood. The panel concludes that a cause and effect relationship has been established between the consumption of DHA and contribution to normal brain development. So I wrote up here, as attested to in scientific opinions such as this statement published in 2014 by the European Food Safety Authority, and substantially backed up by countless scientific studies over the past 20 plus years, with few contrary opinions. DHA, in fact, plays a crucial role as a major functional component of the human brain, the visual pathway in sperm cells, and possibly as a significant contributor to cardiovascular health. DHA is, in addition, indispensable to a litany of routine biological functions and has been clearly shown over the past several years to be essential to the growth, maintenance, and overall functioning of many bodily systems from conception to old age. We're getting the point here that there's really something important about DHA, but let's go forward. Where does DHA come from? Is it provided by our diet? Can we manufacture DHA in our body? Omega-3 PUFAs cannot be synthesized de novo, that is, made internally from basic molecular components by the human body. So we must rely on dietary means to acquire them. This is from Kang in 2011. So let's look at this chart for a moment. This band, kind of orange and yellow, little thingies, that represents the membrane of a cell. So you're just looking at a slice of this membrane of a cell. It's every cell in your body, but this chart is specific to brain cells, particularly in the prefrontal cortex. The reddish ones are the phospholipids containing omega-3s, and the other ones are phospholipids lacking omega-3s. So in that earlier quote, it talked about 30 to 40%. Well, this ratio changes depending upon your diet. The more of the phospholipids, specifically DHA, that are found in this membrane, better your brain functions. So, dietary DHA is incorporated into cellular membranes of all tissues. The extent of incorporation into tissue membranes is dependent on dietary intake. Consumption of recommended intakes of omega-3 fatty acids may lead to a general increase in the overall health and well-being of the population. That's a pretty powerful statement. Just increasing the consumption of omega-3 fatty acids and understanding that specifically if you're increasing DHA, very powerful. So it's possible the human body can make DHA, but it's extremely inefficient. There's a biological or a molecular pathway that the body needs to use to take what's ordinarily available in our diet and turn it into DHA. Here's omega-3s. Starts with alpha-linolenic acid, or ALA. Goes through a whole number of steps, various biochemical reactions, and eventually you get down here to DHA, Docosahexaenoic acid. A lot of effort involved here. We're going to look at the next slide. Even though DHA can be synthesized in the human body from molecular precursors, which are more readily available in the diet, this is a slow and extremely energy inefficient biochemical process. Consequently, a vanishingly small amount of the more commonly available ALA, which is at the beginning of that cascade, on the metabolic, omega-3 metabolic pathway to DHA, reaches the cell membranes as DHA. While humans have the required enzymes to biosynthesize omega-3, long-chain PUFAs, studies demonstrate that 0.5% of the ALA is actually converted into DHA after going through that chain. So even very high intakes of dietary ALA fail to effectively modulate plasma and tissue levels of DHA. So the DHA in your blood, DHA that ends up in your brain and other tissues of the body, well, yeah, you can go eat a product that has omega-3s in it, or you can go down the store and buy some supplement that says, yeah, we've got omega-3s in it. Well, that's nice, but effectively, you're wasting your money, you're wasting your time. DHA is only produced directly via photosynthesis in marine phytoplankton, including algae and certain terrestrial plants generally considered inedible by humans. The omega-3 bond in these plants captures the energy of the sun to transduce light energy into electron flow. Wild salmon, which of course you've probably all heard about as a good source of omega-3s, and other ocean predators concentrate harmful levels of mercury along with the DHA as they consume lower trophic level species. So these large predator animals are eating smaller fish or eating smaller animals who ultimately have been eating the algae, and the algae is where the DHA is produced in marine environment. So DHA is also found in eggs of free-range chickens. Marine dietary sources of DHA are available for some people, yet consumption of this marine life is not recommended by Lord Krishna, nor easily accessible for everyone, and ecologically sustainable at world population scale. The DHA produced by a patented algae production protocol is not affordable for the general population. So, public health nutritionists have been, with the confidence engendered after several years of scientific evaluation of the beneficial effects of DHA, encouraging the frequent consumption of DHA-rich fish or fish oil, or at least algal oil supplements, and have even advised cattle and dairy farmers and chicken ranchers to supplement their animals' diet with DHA from unsustainable, unusual dietary sources for these animals, including ground-up fish meal. For cows.
Can I say something?
Yeah,
about
please.
Fish, the salmon.
Yes.
They have a new salmon now. It's GMO.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it's not in the ocean everywhere.
Lovely.
It's I think I'm not sure where it is, but they started this now, and it's spreading it all over the world.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw a video with like huge pools of these fish, like they're just this close together, just sloshing around. Anyway, just horrible situation. The edict for the world population in general is, this edict is unachievable. The Earth's fisheries are already at or beyond their capacity to sustain the present rate of harvest, and this supply falls far short of meeting the demand placed on the fish population by the nutritionists' recommendations. So here's a quote: "The market for marine fish oils is largely dominated by the aquaculture industry for use as a main lipid or fat ingredient in feeds for farmed fish." So they graze fish, then they feed the fish to other fish. It's just insane. The sustainability of fisheries is directed for this purpose has become a major concern as global catches have attained a maximum limit since the 80s. We are faced with a paradox. Health recommendations advise increased consumption of oily fish and fish oils within limits, on the grounds that intake is generally low. However, we probably do not have a sustainable supply of long-chain omega-3 fats. So, no meat, no fish, no eggs, no patented algae. What's a devotee to do? There's a study done by a fellow named Guil in 1996. He was looking at wild vegetables and what kind of nutrients they have. And just totally by accident, without intent, he wasn't looking for anything in particular, he identified long-chain PUFAs in some of these plants. A total of 20 wild vegetables were identified as having long-chain PUFAs in them, or more specifically, in some cases, DHA. This minuscule, apparently ad hoc sample of 20 wild vegetables, 4 were found to contain DHA. It is particularly interesting to note that the use of the word unexpectedly in this statement. For the most part, researchers have not even been looking for terrestrial plants as a source of DHA. Virtually everyone is thinking, oh, salmon, mackerel, or algae or seaweed, but certainly not land plants. Confined cows, whose diet is restricted to a very limited variety of plants grown on petrochemical fertilized soil, the industrial dairy standard, have virtually no DHA in their milk, barring artificial supplementation with fish or algae oils. So, no benefit there, unless you put fish in milk. So, abundant, ecologically regenerative, potentially widely available. Few terrestrial sources of preformed DHA meet all 3 of these basic requirements for dietary consumption, with the exception of milk from properly cared for cows. Yet, cows themselves do not produce DHA. DHA must be present in the cow's diet to appear in their milk. So, Okay, grazing cows, exceptionally diverse, healthy, young, forbs, grasses, legumes, brassicas, which are, broccoli, kale, collards, leafy green, that sort of thing. Shrubs and some trees, fertilized by their own dung and urine, personally harvested DHA produced by these plants, terrestrial plants, and pass it directly into their milk and flesh. How can we enhance the quantity of DHA available for cows grazing on pasture plants? Well, earlier we heard about silvopastoral farming. So agro-silvopastoral farming, known as the Hisa in Spain, Satayama in Japan, in Hawaii as Apua, and more recently as permaculture farming, as well as other regional terms worldwide, has long been practiced as an intentional method of increasing productivity by combining agriculture, particularly grain production, fruitful forestry, and the daily shifting of grazing herbivores, especially cows, from place to place in sparsely forested, biodiverse, multi-level landscape. So we saw some pictures of that earlier. Here we're seeing it again. Here's in Spain. Down here we have a mouse. Yeah. Well, yeah, here. So in Spain, in Hawaii, and in Japan. Various passages in Srila Prabhupada's purports to the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Krishna book. We learn about the lush forest environment where Krishna grazes non-monogamous cows in the spiritual realm known as Goloka, the planet of cows. So, practically, Prabhupada describes this sort of environment. Goloka, also called Vrindaban, is always full of cows. Flowers are always blooming, and there are even various kinds of decorated deer. Birds are chirping, peacocks are crowing and dancing, and bees are humming. Accompanied by the cowherd boys and Balaram, Krishna brought forward the cows and played on his flute through the forest of Vrindaban, which was full of flowers, vegetables, and pasturing grasses. Krishna saw all the trees overloaded with fruits and fresh twigs coming down to touch the ground, as if welcoming him by touching his lotus feet. In Brajabhumi, the sweet splendor of spring and the king of all seasons is ever present, and a green velvety carpet covers the surface of the earth. Ever present is important. We'll hear more about that. Lotuses of many colors bloom in the ponds and rivers, and the branches of the trees are well adorned with fully bloomed champa, chameli, beli, juhi, and other delightfully fragrant flowers whose nectar is relished by intoxicated bees. Sometimes the grass is covered by a certain kind of red insect, and when the green and red combine with the umbrella-like mushrooms, the entire scene changes, just like a person who has suddenly become rich. So here's a description of a beautiful biodiverse forest. Here we see Krishna in a lush, multi-level forest meadow environment with his friend Sudama Vipra, whom Srila Prabhupada explains as the real Brahman. Microorganisms at the lowest trophic level of the soil food web. So there's a whole web of life below the surface of the ground, or not, depending on the nature of the soil and how we primarily have taken care of it or not. Microorganisms at the lowest trophic level of the soil food web are nurtured when the cow passes dung and urine as she grazes. Soil lacking these microorganisms and organic matter provides little nutritive value to the organisms on the higher trophic levels. So here's an instance where we're developing the soil that the microorganisms and the other smaller fungi, bacteria, mycores. It's all the various small animals that live in the soil are able to access the minerals already in the soil because of the chemical reactions that are supported by the dung and the urine and the other organic matter that's coming from the rotting plants and roots and so on and so forth. And now it's there's a young lady, Melissa Bainbridge, who gave a presentation in 2017 American Dairy Science Association meeting. Her research focuses on understanding how milk fatty acid profiles relate to cow care and nutrition strategies. She noted that as scientists and the public are becoming more aware of the public health and the economic value of nutritionally superior milk from cows grazed on diverse pastures, they're willing to pay a very significant premium for this milk, particularly since it has an overall beneficial fatty acid profile that is at least double most of milk produced in the US. In addition, she shared that an analysis of the fatty acid profile in cow's milk provides a quantitative measure of the cow's health, their diet, and the status of their digestive system. Then she goes on to say, and significantly, she stated that the most effective of the dairy cow care protocols she evaluated, grazing cows on diverse pasture would be the most appreciated by the consumer. Here's a strong business point. This sort of insight in in-field dairy-based research has been extraordinarily limited until very recently. There are very few scientific articles available directly substantiating the connection between the care and feeding of cows and the quantity of DHA available in their milk. This is a field ripe for investigation. Okay, thank you. The contents of CLA and N3 fatty acids in a serving of whole milk increased when cows grazed on cool season pasture compared to cows fed pearl millet in confinement. Okay, so the conditions necessary for the proper stewardship of the ecosystem, the cows and bulls, and all the living entities in the region are naturally found in a rural village community practicing Bhakti Yoga. The full expansion of this lifestyle is known as Varnasrama-dharma. What are these conditions? The DHA is found in the tender growing tips of certain plants which thrive in an agro-silvopastoral, intentionally managed food forest grazing ground. The ability of forages to maximize the amount of long chain and 3 pufas in meat and milk is dependent on the nature of forage, including the amount and type of lipid present, and is greater when animals consume fresh forage compared with hay or silage. Pasture feeding versus indoor and conserved forage and concentrates increases N3 PUFA in cow milk when cows can select leaves which have high N3 PUFA concentrations. Biodiverse grasslands enhance this effect as some forms show less PUFA rumen biohydrogenation than grasses, meaning the PUFAs are not destroyed in the cow's rumen if they have more access to a wide variety of sources. as opposed to very little, thus increasing the efficiency of PUFA transfer from forage to milk. The forage quality of plants is usually highest during the early period of plant tissue growth, and this period is typically short relative to foliage lifetime. Therefore, animals constricted to limited pasture are frequently forced to eat plant material of marginal food quality or must bear the cost of searching for young tissues. Cost meaning the time and effort walking up and down the hill or whatever to get to that young growth. So even the popularly touted organic and grass-fed cows do not eat the wide range of DHA-rich pasture plants that animals enjoy, grazing in an opulent, biodiverse, multi-level forest, growing in a healthy soil environment. Here's a nice quote from William Albright, 1952. I might say the cow is smart enough to be a better chemist than we are, even with our finest laboratories. She was a chemical assaying agent measuring the quality of feeds long before we were. Primitive man had his herds and his flocks. He followed the cow around. She went ahead and he came behind her with his tent and his plow. She probably said to him, "This is good soil for my food, and I recommend it to you for growing your food." You might recognize this particular chart. Kalakanta described it earlier. It's from Christine Jones, 2018. She said both photosynthetic capacity and photosynthetic rate are strongly impacted by pasture management. Retaining adequate leaf area reduces the impact of grazing on photosynthetic capacity and enables the rapid restoration of biomass to pre-grazed levels. Okay, we all also heard about Alan Savory. He has a program called Holistic Planned Grazing, which is a practice of charting grazing moves from pasture to pasture that consider the time it takes a plant to regrow after being exposed to the grazing animal so that you can enhance the speed that you're able to return the animal to pasture, that same pasture. Of course, this is something that Krishna practiced 5,000 years ago in Vrindaban. There are cows that fulfill all desires, Kamadhenus, and their number is unlimited. They graze from forest to forest and deliver only milk. The people want nothing else. So this was Krishna's program, just taking the cows from forest to forest. The magic of the method lies in the shepherds. More than mere guardsmen, they are experts in their craft, guiding livestock to appropriate grazing sites and moving them to new pastures when the time is right. They are trained to monitor the condition of the most palatable plants, avoid overgrazing and degradation of the natural vegetation, and to provide the land with appropriate rest and recovery. Fundamental spiritual nature and very real value of caring for and feeding cows throughout their entire natural lifespan, set in small local communities dedicated to nurturing and protecting cows and bulls, goes far beyond their milk products, dung and urine too, as we've heard, literally drawing the principles of religiosity in liquid form. So what are these principles? Srila Prabhupada characterizes real religion as principles of personal behavior, pious behavior, which are meant to bring us to a minimum standard of civilized human conduct suitable for understanding spiritual knowledge. The most basic preliminary formulas for drawing the principles of religiosity in liquid form are mercy. Without the mercy demonstrated in compassionate care and attention for all the devotees, plants, animals, including cows in particular, and humans, maintaining ecological balance is unattainable. Everyone must be present to do their particular service for the environment. Environmental scientists call these ecological services. Without the cleanliness of mind and body supported by living in and maintaining a pure sattvic environment, the well-being of cows will be lost. Without the austerity of a simple life, the economic pace necessitated by ox-based agriculture will seem impossible. Without the truthfulness born of humility and the acceptance of these principles, for real freedom as valid, we will remain deluded, thinking ourselves to be smarter than Mother Nature. Success in the lifestyle of Varnasrama-dharma is simply not possible if we ignore these principles. Our piety is nurtured and reinforced by the day-to-day activities of the cowherd and teamster working together with all the inhabitants of their village. The steady performance of these lovingly carried out yet seemingly mundane duties in service to the cows, Krishna's dearmost friends, is the spiritually uplifting benefit we receive from the cow as we milk her. Krishna specifically directs Nanda Maharaj to feed the cows nice grasses. These nice grasses, in concert with sunshine and the soil of Govardhan Hill and all the forests surrounding Vrindaban, utilize photosynthesis to produce, amongst other nutrients, DHA, brain food for the entire community. The cows, nice grasses, and healthy soil are the entire health and wealth of the village. Here we have the essence of spiritually based bio-socio-economic cycle, personally recommended by Krishna for the welfare of all living entities. Give money and charity to the Brahmins, give everyone prasad, feed the cows, nice grasses, and ultimately offer everything back, offer back the resulting produce in the form of grains and ghee into the sacrificial fire. The cowherd and teamster must maintain a steady, sattvic lifestyle to provide proper care and suitable arrangements for the cows and bulls, just as the Brahminical pujari for the deity in the temple maintains a similar sattvic lifestyle. It's actually the nature and quality of our behavior that we draw from Mother Cow as we milk her, developing our relationship with her sons the bulls, and Mother Nature. The pujari, with loving devotion, offers Krishna a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water. Practically the same things loving Vaishya cowherds and teamsters offer their cows and oxen. Thus, by working with them in harmony with nature to arrange for these very offerings, everyone's endeavor comes full circle. These same daily activities are eminently accessible to any common man living a simple agrarian lifestyle, thereby offering anyone the opportunity to develop the finer tissues of the brain and to, in due course, achieve self-realization. In conclusion, we hear from a long-time dedicated cow protector, Hare Krishna Devi Dasi. Peacefulness. Cows and bulls are sensitive to human moods. Cows will not give milk if the milker acts upset. Oxen will not learn commands if the trainer is angry. The cowherd has to cultivate peacefulness to get the job done. Self-control. The most important aspect of self-control for one desiring spiritual advancement is control of the tongue. Eating only food offered to Krishna also promotes control of the tongue. Training oxen is another important aid to sense control. The trainer can see that when the oxen do whatever they feel like, they're useless. Once they're trained and controlled, they're useful and happier. The trainer can see that the oxen are proud and happy to work with him when they can control their senses. The trainer sees that when he trains and controls his own senses to serve Krishna, he too will be happier and more productive. Austerity. In a society that truly practices cow protection, the bull is fully used for growing food and transporting it. As a valuable member of society, the ox is carefully maintained and protected from slaughter. The use of oxen regulates the scale of production, which helps guarantee that land and wealth are fairly distributed. Because the work of caring for cows and the land is satisfying, artificial sources of pleasure are not required. As spiritual life develops, austerity and simple living become a pleasure, not a burden. The tendency will be to use any surplus or any natural opulence for worshiping Krishna, not for sense gratification. Purity. Cows can tolerate a wide range of physical conditions, but they cannot tolerate filth. They quickly become diseased if not kept clean. As the cowherd works to keep the cows clean, he or she practices living a clean way of life. Honesty. Cows are straightforward, and their service demands straightforwardness. It's hard to cheat with them. Either you give them good food, water, and affection, or you don't. Either you're punctual for milkings, or you're not. Either you keep them clean, or you don't. When you make a mistake or get lazy, you'll probably get a quick reaction. And there's more. Industrial food production is inconsistent with the small-scale, locally produced and consumed, biodiverse, ecologically sensitive paradigm inherent in the village-based model as exemplified by Krishna and Balaram. This agrarian model completely eliminates routine soil tillage, long-distance transportation, and petrochemical or fish-based fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides, middlemen, marketing, and delivery costs inherent in the profit-based industrial model. Nice picture of the industrialist sitting in his opulent chair, and out in the field are the people that are taking care of the growing plants. Yes, I will read the quote. A picturesque scene of green paddy fields enlivens the heart of the poor agriculturalist, but it brings gloom to the face of the capitalist who lives by exploiting the poor farmers. The widespread use of ox power in local-scale agriculture can supplant the present large-scale agribusiness model, which relies on the extensive use of non-renewable petroleum resources for fieldwork, transportation, stationary power, and fertilizer, while simultaneously regenerating the soil, returning the population to the land, and providing immediate, tangible value and satisfaction to our work. This was, in fact, the most prevalent agricultural model worldwide until the Industrial Revolution and its concomitant widespread utilization of petroleum products only a few hundred years ago. In fact, large-scale industrial agriculture is often held up as the solution for feeding the world's growing population. However, even now, small farms with about 25 acres or less, along with family-run operations, presently produce over 70% of the world's food. So the farmer's responsibility is to arrange for others to assist in growing and delivering food and to implement local-scale commerce for the benefit of the entire community. We now understand why cows should be offered nice grasses, especially soft, fragrant grasses, which are used to feed the cows so they would become strong and healthy and give nice milk. The cow's responsibility is to fertilize the soil and to harvest fresh plant material, thereby encouraging continued robust plant growth and to deliver milk to her cowherd family. The ox's responsibility is to be trained and engaged in his natural, fatherly role of service to society in agriculture and transportation, producing and distributing fruits and vegetables, grains, sugar, and fiber for clothing, just as we and other living entities thrive by understanding and following our own unique duties within society. The fact that DHA is essential to vigorous, healthy human life and apparently aids in the development and robust function of brain tissue, specialized for use in philosophical introspection. The fact that cow's milk could be the only widely accessible and sustainable source of DHA, that milk, yogurt, ghee, and dung and urine from the cow are necessary for sacrifice to Lord Krishna, and that the ultimate goal of human life is self-realization and service to God, establishes a fundamental devotional imperative supported by biological evidence for embracing a socioeconomic and cultural system sustained at its core by cows and oxen.